What's going on, guys? Stockezy here, and today I want to talk about this camera and my impressions of shooting with the Leica M10 versus my Fujifilm X Pro 2. I actually don't have it with me right now. I lent it to somebody for a little bit, but I've been shooting with this thing for a few weeks now, and I just took it to London. And also, I had a different video planned for this. I was in London, I did a little street meetup with a few guys out there, just like a little impromptu thing, a random day. And I really wanted to make a video from London, and I did some POV shooting one day out in Shoreditch, and then we actually did a walk to Soho. And on my way back to New York, I was continuing to film on my GoPro, kind of trying to find an ending for the video. And I actually left my GoPro in the Newark yellow taxi cab. And I mean, I've called all the numbers, I've done all the things, and it just leads to a bunch of dead ends. So my GoPro is gone. Perfect timing for that Hero 8 to be coming out right now. But so I had to scrap that London video, but I'm gonna still show you guys some photos that I got with this thing from London, and we can talk a little bit about my impressions and how I feel about this camera versus my X Pro 2, which I actually don't have on me right now, unfortunately. But I just wanna start off by saying that getting used to this camera has been, it's not very difficult. It's not a difficult thing to get used to this camera, but obviously it transitions the way that I shoot when I'm out in the streets, because obviously this doesn't have any autofocus and it doesn't have an EVF inside of it. And that brings me to my first point with this camera. I'm gonna start off with a couple of things that are negative. I don't trust the light meter as much in this camera, and that's not to say that it doesn't work or anything like that, but when I'm being incredibly fast and I'm just like snapping to photographs in an instant, oftentimes the light meter might read that the situation is very overexposed and it'll underexpose it very quickly. I usually need to like not be as fast or reactive with this camera for it to get a proper light meter reading. And that means that sometimes I'll see something and I'll go to snap really fast, and then the image will come out super underexposed. On the other hand, if I kind of slow down and I finesse the situation just a little bit more, the light meter will usually hit pretty well. So it doesn't respond very well to fast movements. That's something that you could easily avoid if you don't shoot an aperture priority. I shoot an aperture priority with this. I shot an aperture priority with my X Pro 2. I shoot an aperture priority with my M7, and that's why I bought that particular film camera, because I know all the settings on this camera. I don't really care about shooting in manual. I don't like to make photography harder. I just want them to get out of my way so that I can take photos now. A lot of people think that these type of things are cheating, putting your camera on fully auto, but it does not guarantee you a good photo. Because I had really bad eyes, and sometimes in the daylight I have cataracts still in my right eye. I got surgery on my left eye to get the cataracts removed, but my eyes don't respond very well to daylight. Oftentimes I can't read my cell phone or a camera screen, and because this camera does not have an EVF built into it, well, that means that it's very difficult for me to check my photos on the LCD in the back. I just can't see it. So with the X Pro 2, what I would normally do is I would always do my playbacks in the EVF in the back. So I would do something like this and look at my photos outside. I'd usually point it at the ground or something like that, and I would review my photos. So it is a negative thing that is also a positive thing, because it actually allows me to check my photos less, that it doesn't have the EVF. So I'm more into what I'm doing outside in the street, which is kind of one of the reasons why I really like the X Pro 3's design with the LCD being turned inward on itself, because this last few weeks of not being able to check my photos has actually been kind of freeing. One of the most popular questions that I get about this camera that comes up pretty often is it worth it? That's a really, one, I think it's the wrong question to ask, and two, I think it's a really difficult question to answer, because to me, owning a $10,000 camera is kind of like living in New York City and buying a Ferrari. Okay, so if you're living in Manhattan, it's pretty dangerous to own anything expensive because it's probably gonna get banged up, right? And it's very easy to commute around with anything else, whether it be an electric bike, a scooter, rollerblades, the subway, the bus, right? But if you have the money to buy a Ferrari and commute in New York City, then it's not really a question about it being worth it. It doesn't make sense. It's whether or not it's in your means to own it. It's not in my means to own this camera. And if I couldn't buy 2 Leica M7s, I wouldn't have bought 1. I've been creating images for the last 3 years with a camera that is a quarter of the price of this. So in terms of worth, it really goes from a case-by-case perspective, right? I can't tell you to save up for 5 years to buy this camera because it's not going to progress your photography. If you can't shoot with one camera, you're not going to magically be able to shoot with this one. And if anything, one thing that I love about this camera is the intention that it gives you when you go outside, right? I've relied heavily on autofocus in the last few years of shooting with all of my Fujifilm cameras, and that's a great thing. Autofocus is brilliant. It's made photography so much more accessible to people that don't understand using these focus scales on there, and I've had to learn all those things again, and that makes every photograph I take way more intentional. And by that I mean, if anybody's ever shot with me, if you've seen me in the streets, I do a little bit of a ballet with my camera. I stick it in weird places. I love incredibly odd angles, and I'll do whatever I can to get the photo, but that method relies heavily on autofocus. With this, I don't really get to just snap and keep moving. I actually have to take a second to adjust and think about the frames that I'm getting and think about the images a few minutes or seconds before I take the photo. So negative and a plus. I don't get to be as reactive as I normally would be, but my photos have a lot more intention because it's slowing me down and making me consider what is capable in those moments instead of just running around taking essentially snapshots. Image quality. Wow, this has a very beautiful 3D quality to it. I don't know what magic sauce they put in the sensor, but anybody that has seen these images straight out of camera, the grain patterns, the sharpness to them, the resolution is just, it's absolutely incredible. Now, if I did a side by side, would you know? Probably not. I think quality for photographs and cameras it's usually for the person that's processing it. Once I process my image and I put it on Instagram or whatever, you have no clue what camera it's come out of. So this is for the pixel peepers and the people that like to oogle their images while they're in Lightroom or Capture One or whatever it is that you're doing. What else? Okay, so one thing that I was really excited about getting my first Leica, which was this M7, was the idea that I could simplify my photography again. With my YouTube channel and trying to show people what is capable with different focal lengths, I managed to get ahead of myself and acquire way too much gear that has made photography a little convoluted for me. You know, I've always sworn by one camera, one lens, but unfortunately, I've kind of drifted away from that idea within making my YouTube channel, and I've ended up acquiring way too many lenses and way too many camera bodies. So when I bought this M7, I was kind of romanticizing the idea of having one camera and one lens for a very long time. These are incredibly expensive, and I imagine that anybody who's ever bought a Leica didn't go out and buy 10 lenses with it the way that I did with my Fuji cameras. So I told myself I would get this M7 and I would just attach 35mm f2 and that would just be it. That'd be my ride or die. That'd be my EDC, my everyday carry. But I'm trying to simplify things right now for as long as I have this camera. This 35mm f2 is staying glued to it, so most of the photos that you're seeing right now are from the 35mm f2. I've slapped on the 50mm f2 Summicron onto the camera a few times. I absolutely love that lens. It renders so beautifully and the bokeh from it is gorgeous. I'll show you one of those images right now that kind of do it justice. But again, the simplicity of this, the fact that there are barely any buttons on the back of this camera, the fact that I cannot tweak too much about this camera, it just is what it is, you know? And beautiful image quality, an incredible build quality. This thing just kind of gets out of your way and allows you to create the way that you want to create. And it's not to say that the X Pro and the Fujis don't do that. They're highly customizable so that you can make it as simple as you like them to be. But I think for someone that's new to photography, a Fuji can be very overwhelming sometimes with all those customizations. And this is why I rarely suggest a Sony camera to anybody that's new to photography. I mean, I never suggest a Leica to anybody that's new to photography. But as you can see with the X Pro 3 series, Fuji is moving more into the direction of Leica by making things incredibly simplified. So yeah, there's really not much that I could say about this camera. Its simplicity kind of speaks volumes for itself. It's not very feature heavy. It doesn't have a ton of film. It doesn't have any film simulations. You can switch it to monochrome, or you can put high contrast or sharpness up on all those kinds of things. Other than that, this thing is just kind of, it's as simple as it gets. And I love that. I absolutely love it. Also, one thing that I don't love, but I do love. So as you can see, there is a theme here with things being a positive and a negative at the same time, and it's just a matter of getting used to it, right? This is a little bit different from what I'm used to. With the X Pro 2, I always had the option to go a little more silent with the shutter. I love the sound that the X Pro 2 shutter makes. I love the sound. This thing sounds like a typewriter. I'll let you guys hear it real quick. It's beautiful, but I can't silence that shutter, and you can hear it when I get real close to people and I snap photos of them. They notice it, it's not a problem. I really don't care that people notice it, but sometimes I want to be a little more stealth if I'm in the subway or I'm in a quiet elevator. I'm a creep, whatever. I guess again, it comes down to the fact that everything I do has to be done with purpose, and I have to own it now with this camera. I can't just be sneaking around and doing my normal ninja wizardry with this thing. Other than those couple of little nitpicky things, this camera has been incredible. It's actually really nice to go back to an OVF and kind of see exactly what I'm getting outside. I really enjoy the EVF, but sometimes I feel like it is too much of a comfort zone for me. Yeah, I don't know. That's it. I don't have anything else to say about this camera. It's so basic. It's so bare bones. It's just pure photography, right? It's pure photography with a 35mm lens attached. This is all I ever need, and I walk outside with this thing every day, and I don't think about any other gear. So, and one last thing, I want to give an extra special shout out to Mateus, Zane, Elheim, and Jay. It's always amazing traveling and like getting to see the community and meet with you guys and see you in person and talk about the work. It's super inspiring to me and uplifting that we have this type of community here on YouTube that's incredibly positive. I'm fortunate enough that my comment sections don't suck and you guys are always incredible. So thank you guys.